Welcome to 1.2 Native American Societies Before European Contact. Our theme today is geography and the environment, so geo. If you're highlighting in this for 1.2, we're really focusing on green as our color, and that is the color that we're used for geo throughout this semester. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to do one main thing, which is explain how and why various native populations or indigenous groups interacted with the natural environment. This key here is about adaptation. We're not just memorizing where tribes lived, we're understanding why they lived where they lived and what they did based on the land around them. Let's start with the engine of civilization, maize or corn. The crop wasn't just food, it was technology. It originated in Mesoamerica and spread north. So, why does this even matter? Because maize is a high yield crop and it is storable. So, that means that when corn can't be eaten because there's too much of it, it can be dried and saved. It allowed for societies like the Aztecs to support massive populations, up to 20 million people. The Aztecs had one of the most advanced civilizations and cities in Tenochtitlan in the world. It allowed for economic development, advanced irrigation projects like chinampas, which you see right here in the bottom right. If you have a surplus of food, not everyone has to farm. So this allows for social diversification. So you have now some people are farming, some people are building, some people are protecting, all sorts of different roles within the society. And so now you have some people that can also rise up and be rulers, priests, and artisans. So you have a more stratified social structure. As maize moves north, it's going to hit the arid southwest. And so the Anasazi and the Pueblo have a big problem: water. They developed incredible irrigation systems to farm in the desert. They also perfected the Three Sisters farming, where you plant corn, beans, and squash together. The corn stalk is like a pole for the beans. The beans add nitrogen to the soil, and the squash leaves keep the ground moist. It is brilliant agricultural engineering, which you can see right here. Also, notice the social impact here. In many societies, women are responsible for this agriculture because they control the food supply. This means that they're often elevated or central to the community's stability. So you have matrilineal societies being created. We know that societies are going to respond to the arid climate of the basins and the grasslands differently. So we're going to look towards the west, not just the southwest. The Great Basin used to be a massive lake called Lake Bonneville. When the Ice Age ended, the lake dried up, leaving the Great Salt Lake and a harsh desert. How do you adapt to that? You don't farm, you move. Tribes like the Paiute, the Shoshone, and the Ute were nomadic, following food sources. They developed techniques like drying grains to survive in the arid environment. Moving into where we're from, the southeast, we find an area defined by mixed agriculture and hunting and gathering. Tribes like the Creek and the Cherokee sustained large populations here as well. They did this because the climate was warmer and wetter, which is going to allow for extensive farming. They utilize the Three Sisters, but they also adapt to the resources of the region, like deer and turkey. And if you've ever been driving, not in the city, but in the country, when it's deer season, you know they're everywhere. And can you only imagine before we moved in and built all this stuff, how many deer there would be. And this surplus of food supported complex political structures and large permanent villages. Moving into the Northeast and the Atlantic coast, the environment is going to be different here as well. You are going to have dense forested areas and an extensive amount of rivers. As you can kind of see here, you have the Great Lakes in part of this area. You have all these rivers, the Hudson River, the St. Lawrence, all sorts of different rivers. So these groups are going to also have mixed economies. They're going to farm, but also hunt and gather. This region was dominated by the Iroquois, and the Iroquois had created political alliances. So not just farming, unlike the Southeast, the growing season is going to be shorter here, so hunting and gathering is going to be a huge part. The Iroquois were a matrilineal society, meaning that women, matrilineal, and all property is passed down through the mother. This is huge because women owned the land, the crops, and this gave them significant political power in the tribe. Men hunted, women farmed. They also used controlled burns in the forest to facilitate hunting. This clears out the underbrush and makes it easier to see game and encourage new plant growth. Finally, the Pacific Northwest. This region is unique because of its abundance. The ocean and the forest provide so much food, salmon, deer, berries, that they didn't need intensive agriculture to support large population. Estimates suggest over 1 million people lived in this area before contact. Because resources were so plentiful, they could develop settled communities with complex social hierarchies without relying on farming. Subsistence included hunting and gathering in forest, using controlled burns to facilitate hunting, encouraging plant growth, fishing in rivers and the coast. Tribes like the Chumash and the Yurok manage these resources carefully. Again, we see the pattern. The environment provided, the culture adapted to harvest and manage it. Let's do a quick recap. The importance of the maize culture and its effects on native societies cannot be overstated, but it built civilizations. In contrast, the aridity of the Great Basin and the vastness of the plains led to mobile lifestyles. Finally, the Atlantic and the Pacific coast supported large populations through mixed economies and abundant resources. Here's the takeaway. It's not just a list of tribes. It's the environment determined culture. In the desert, you needed irrigation and permanent villages. On the plains, you needed mobility to follow bison. In the forest and southeast, you needed mixed farming and political alliances. On the coast, abundance allowed for settled complex societies. Natives weren't just living in nature, they were actively managing and transforming it to build complex societies. Make sure you can identify the characteristics of the Southwest, the Great Basin, the Northeast, the Southeast, and the Northwest. Ask yourself, how did the land force the people to live? Next up, we'll be looking at what happens when these distinct worlds collide with European explorers. But for now, make sure your G notes in topic 1.2 are filled out with the specific examples from the regions.